Sie haben früher alle gelacht, diese Juden. Sie haben das für einen Spaß gehalten. Ja, sie lachen heute nicht mehr. Sie wissen, es ist ein blutiger Ernst geworden. Nein, möchte ich auch den Hinweis noch darauf, den ich schon einmal sagte, dass nämlich, wenn wirklich die andere Welt von dem Judentum in einen allgemeinen Krieg gestürzt wird, das Judentum damit seine Rolle in Europa ausgespielt haben wird.
Auch eine andere Macht, die sehr gewaltig war in Deutschland, hat unterdessen die Erfahrung erleben können, dass die nationalsozialistischen Prophezeiungen keine Phrasen sind. Es ist
Terezin is the name of the town, and Terezin Stadt is what the Germans called it when they took over. Stadt is German for city, the city of Terezin. I wrote the play in 1969. I saw an exhibit of drawings and poems by the children who were in Terezin from 1942 to 44, and they left these works of art and beautiful little poems, and the youngest was 3, and I've met her, Inga Arbacker. She lives in New York now, and the oldest was 18, and there were 15,000 of them in those 2 years. And one of them that I saw translated from the Czech language to English said, if you should find this, please tell someone I want to go home, want my life back, remember me. Well, I just felt like he was talking to me. And so I sat down in the gallery on that day in '69 and just started writing. And the stories that came up were my parents' stories, because they both survived Auschwitz. And I'd heard those stories, mostly from my mother. And I started creating characters around my mother and then one around my father, and it just evolved and evolved, and about a year later it opened at Playhouse in the Park in Cincinnati, which is a reputable equity theater company, and they let us do it there. It's not the same play today, 43 years later. It's changed, it's made a lot of rounds and evolutions, changing the way I've changed in 43 years, and my perspective on what happened to my parents and my family in Auschwitz. But what hasn't changed is that request. It's in the play. If you should find this, tell someone. I want to go home. Remember me. The kids this time were ready. They kept saying, we've been doing this play for 3 and 4 years, and we'd like to see the place before we graduate high school. Some of them were at 17. We just would like to have this experience. What do you think? Is it possible? So I connected with the German school called the Odenwaldschule, and they said, come on down, bring that show. Our kids understand English. Perform here, we'll put you up for a few days, and it seemed so simple, and we did it, and it was. It was meant to be.
I think the experience that really affected me the most was meeting Helga Haskova. She's an 84-year-old terezin survivor. And just her words and reading her book really made an impact on me and how I saw the play, even relating it to, all the characters. I saw all the characters in the play in her book and through her writing. She drew pictures and she hid them in terezin concentration camp. And as an adult, she went back and she found all those pictures that she hid when she was 10, 12. One of our main characters, Miriam, is an artist in the cell block and one of the leaders, and she draws pictures and hides them, and I know our letter was hidden too, and that's we interwove it into the play. It made it so much more real, I think, meeting someone that was actually in a cell block. The struggles of everyday life, she told us she didn't hold back on anything. So I think that really helped me put it in perspective and made it so much more real than just a vacation to Czechoslovakia.
She saw her father for a last time in the lines, the food lines, and as they passed, she smuggled him a picture of her making a snowman back at home in Prague. And it was colorful and had colored pencils, and she was very excited about the birthday gift. He wrote back a note, her last note from him, "Draw what you see." And that's the name of her book, Draw What You See. So she drew what she saw in pencil as if it were a camera. And she saw some horrendous things, and she drew them. Piles of bodies, trains, transports, hunger, death. She drew it all, and she was 10.
Pretending to be there for 2 years and actually being there was such a big difference from the stage to the actual place where the people were. I think that was a big hitting home, and how that was living, that was the better part. I think that's what the main concern was, and how scary that was, that is the good part and how people could live in that.
It's one thing to read something in a textbook or online, or even to watch Schindler's List or a movie such as that, but to actually be in the place where it happened and see buildings where, Jews lived or Jews died, it just makes it more real and just makes it feel like more of a tribute to the memory of those who did die.
It definitely made the show mean a lot more to me personally. Especially after going to terezin and walking through the camp and where it all happened, where the people that we play, they lived there. It multiplied the emotion by 10, it was crazy. And especially performing it in front of German students that were our age, it was an insane feeling that it was amazing, but it was also it was powerful, and I wanted to get that feeling back because I felt like I was doing something special and I was making an impact on those students' lives, and that was really special.
Sometimes people, they go in to the show, they're not really sure what to expect. They think that it's just a play. But I think that by the end, they realize that there's a tremendous amount of truth in that show. And I think that being in the place where they actually were, standing on the stones of Terezin, is just such a remarkable experience, and it changes you. So I think that for me, one of the most extraordinary things was being able to be in that place and then take that feeling and that energy and give those people a voice. And I think that that's something that really stuck with me through that trip, and I think that that also stuck with our audience as we were performing.
As we walked through the camp, we walked through a gate, and above the gate it says Arbeit macht frei. It's German for work sets you free. It's a ruse. That's also in Auschwitz. My mother and father saw that same sign right next to the gas chamber, so that would control the masses, because 10,000 people a day got off those trains. 10,000 people a day were murdered. So they had come into this camp under this gate that they knew, they were prepared. They'd seen a photo, and they were looking up at it, and they just stopped. They paused. They didn't just walk through. They realized that once they were on the other side of this gate, they were going to see things and hear about things that were just so horrible, so unbelievable, that they braced themselves. I felt them. I also caught them gazing at each other, just stopping. I saw two of them take hands, kind of like, here we go, could you hold my hand, without talking. Just everything was done so silently. It was like a funeral. We were walking through, almost in a dream state, trying to imagine the scenes we created and where they might take place at this camp. Looking at the names, their birth date, their death date, written on walls, thousands of names. Having the kids react to that. One in particular rubbed his hand over the name, Ari, and he said, she was only 3. And his really getting it, what the ominous responsibility of representing the lives of these children.
Doing the play impacts every single one of them, but there is usually one or two that stand out and you just don't ever want to forget an experience that you've watched them go through. For Ari, it did make an impact because his grandfather was a survivor of Auschwitz, and he carries that burden with him. And when he was studying for his bar mitzvah, at the end of it, and he kicked and screamed and fussed and along the way a lot of the kids do, but at the end of it, he asked Anna, "Does this mean that I am a man now? I've done this, I've studied this, I've gone through all of this, I've gotten my pocket full of money and presents. Am I a man now?" And you said to him, "Ari, you will know when you are a man." And I remember in Terezin, there was room after room after room, from floor to ceiling, covered in marble slabs. On these marble slabs, from a distance it almost looked like some sort of little calligraphy, but as you got closer you saw that name after name after name after name, and it became almost dizzying as you looked around and realized that every single mark was the name of someone that had been at Terezin. It was almost impossible to grasp the magnitude of each name representing a person, a child. And I was behind everyone, and I saw Ari just standing still in front of one slab of marble, and everyone else had moved along, and he just was standing there, and I was looking at things, and I noticed that when I was ready to leave, he was still standing there. And as I walked by, he said he was only 3 years old. And he was looking at the name of a little boy that had just somehow caught his eye, and he noticed the day that that child was born and the day that that child died. And when he said he was only 3 years old, I relayed this story to Anna later that evening back at the hotel, and tears started coming down her eyes. And she told me about Ari at his bar mitzvah, saying, "Am I a man now?" And as I told this story to Anna, and tears coming down her eyes, she said, "Ari became a man at that moment." And I will never, ever forget that.
You know, I am the mom of 2 kids in the cast. The little one is Gabriela, that plays Leah, you know, and Isabella, that plays Celia. And back in time, I think in the beginning of the year, when you approach us just saying, "Oh, you know, your kids, you know, would like to be part of this cast," immediately as a mom, my kids was involved in theater. We know Anna Smolovitz. We heard about terezin. We just, oh yes, great opportunity. You know, the kids should be exposed, and you just see just an opportunity to the kids go ahead in their hobby, future career, whatever. Don't think too much about it. And then Anna kind of explained that we were going to Germany and we're going to visit a few things, and everything looks wonderful until I went home, and I was like, oh, and get the panic, the protection, the mother, you know, because my kids, you know, half German. And then I got suddenly so scared that first how we would be exposing something, the ugly side of Germany, right? I always say countries are like our children. We as moms, we can see the imperfection, but we hate to expose to the world. And so far, my children only knew Germany, the beauty of Germany, everything that should be proud. And I was very scared. I was scared to suddenly other children start to see my children as the Germans, the Nazis, you know, and then also how my kids would handle the ugly side of that, you know, that's part of their heritage. Then I got very scared, and was my husband being German that just said, no, this is a great opportunity, and I'm very thankful for him to say that, and then we decided to go ahead.
how could innocent people just die because of their religion? How could Germany, and the country I'm proud of, how could anything like this ever happen? Like, no one stopped it. Well, because little steps were making a big problem, and no one stopped those little steps before it made a big problem.
To think about it, we were going to Germany during winter school vacation. Most of the kids or the friends in school, they were going to Disney, they were going to the ski resorts, or just relax at home. And this group of kids were excited that they were going to a concentration camp. And they would meet a survivor, Holocaust survivor, and to see how deep engaged these kids were. And almost sure you can say, here's the tickets to go to an amazing vacation, or you want to go to the concentration camp with your theater cast, and I'm sure 100% they would not even look to the side. It's scary as parents, as spectators, to see these kids going deep and really see how cruel a human being can be, because in the end it's humanity. They were Germans, they were Nazis, but they were human beings, and shows that how cruel a human being can be. And to see these young kids to realize this in such a young age, it's frightening as parents and people that are there to protect them. But the same is, you're so proud of them.
We asked the students what had they learned from their schools or their families about the Holocaust. How were they prepared for this show? And they were quite prepared. They had studied Schindler's List as well. They all go to concentration camps in high school. They do these field trips. What they felt was lacking was much processing after they do these things. That there weren't a lot of adults guiding them, teachers or parents, in what it all meant to this generation, 4 generations later. What did it mean to have this legacy, this history, this responsibility? And they thought about it privately, but they found that very few of them ever discussed it with one another or with their families. And when they did talk or ask their families, what did our family do in the war? They said they always heard, we hid Jews, we were not involved, we were not for Hitler, we were anti-Hitler. Like, everyone said that. Very few. My students relayed that one person said his grandfather was in the SS. One out of all those students and teachers. Nobody knew a Nazi. That's interesting. I mean, it's hard to believe, but it's interesting that they actually believe that without questioning it a bit.
One of the reasons why I do the play, in addition to the important historical significance that it has, for a more contemporary reason is just to raise awareness about bullying. Because, when I was a kid, I was bullied myself. And it's not always just the people that are actually physically performing the bullying. It's also, there are people that are just bystanders that look down at their feet rather than do something. And that's one of the things that I really enjoy talking about, and why I do the show, is to explain to those bystanders the power that you actually have and the steps that you can take to reach out and stop things like this.
The night before the show, we were talking with this one student at the school, and his grandfather was one of the highest ranking Nazi officials. And he kind of made jokes about the Holocaust and was not exactly the most sensitive to the subject. And I know Lily were both shocked at that. But then the next day after the show, he, I believe, went to both shows and stuck around and was talking to us. And someone, I believe you, Anna, posed the question, you know, why does hatred happen? Why does bullying happen? And he raised his hand and said, you know, I think that that things like this happen because people try to see other people who are happy and are jealous and want to take it away. And I thought that was just so interesting how someone went from making jokes about it and, you know, brushing off everything that happened, as Lily said, to really thinking about it and processing it and probably coming to terms with, you know, his own feelings about his grandfather being, you know, one of Hitler's inner circle.
I can say that they are so much more mature, so much more aware of the dark side of the humanity. And being aware, they also, you know, they are convinced that they can do something because it's what the play is all about it, you know. Let's, you know, not just sit and look and let this happen. Let's do something. And I think it's what the kids really got it. We can all do something to change this world.
But there is an urgency to tell their stories, survivors' stories, and I feel this commitment to my grandparents who were killed, and aunts and uncles and cousins, and there's so many that were killed. I feel a commitment to them to tell their story. I really do, and that's why this play has been ongoing for 43 years. And I'm thinking if you ask them if they were alive, that might be their perspective as well. Please don't forget me. That's what that kid said. Chaim Landau, he said, remember me. Okay, I'm gonna. And I'm hoping other people will as well. And that ultimately is the goal, is to remember what happened there, so that no one ever forgets.